Injuries continuing to climb. Unfamiliar face enters the fold again for the Birds, and we get a taste of what's to come through the unofficial depth chart going into Thursday. What's going on, everybody? Almost forgot to switch the jerseys out before I started the recording, and that's an easy way to know that we're not perfect. But what's up, y'all? Lindy Endzone in the building for the touchdown, taking the lead for the Eagles, one video at a time, and dropping buckets for, yes, my Dallas Mavericks. If you are new to the diversity of fandom that I bring to the table, I would love to have you a part of the End Zone fam. As we're continuing to grow, we hit another milestone. All you got to do to achieve that is hit the subscribe button, smash that mash, right? Smash the notification bell so y'all know when I drop my next pieces, and hit the like if I do a good enough job. It also helps me with the algorithm of this platform to get my content out there to further Bleeding Green, Eagles fans, and MFFLs alike. Oh man, I'll tell you what. With these, with the stress and optimism, and the sheer excitement of training camp just continues to, it just continues to go down its path. Of course, the Eagles are not devoid of injuries as they're continuing to climb. Ryan Kerrigan is out 7 to 10 days after having hand surgery. He did show some discomfort that we mentioned earlier. I think it was about last week or so. He had some discomfort in his hand, so he got surgery on that. It was either it was like a thumb or a finger, some sort of measure like that. Andre Dillard, we seen go to the tent earlier and into the NovaCare. He'd also suffered a knee sprain. He is week to week. Goes to show in that competition there for the left tackle spot. It looks like that it's going to solely be Jordan Mailata from here on out. This injury does, of course, not suit Andre Dillard very well in maintaining any sort of status on the football team. As far as his depth goes in that offensive line rotation at the left tackle spot. There's speculation that he should be involved in a trade package. Maybe the Miami Dolphins give us a call, something like that. Who knows? But what we do know is that this is not good for Andre Dillard to try and keep some sort of competition going, even though he has been losing. It doesn't bode well for him at all. And then lastly, another addition, Kayvon Wallace, groin injury, and he is also week to week. So that's another player dealing with a groin, like John Hightower as well. These aren't good. These aren't these aren't good losses. And what I mean by good losses is that these are players that you would want on the field to get those reps, whether it's a rookie going into year two trying to make an impact, or a seasoned veteran like in Ryan Kerrigan that you're trying to add to depth to the defensive line, or just like when we talked about Andre Dillard, and the team invests in him as a first round pick, and it just continues to not look good for him health wise. This is the second not significant injury he's dealing with, but a knee sprain for an offensive lineman. Yeah, we went through the Jason Peters eras. We understand what that means. ACL tears, that and the such. Doesn't really look very good. So, for left tackle who already gets bull rushed pretty easily, having a weak joint like that in your knee with anchoring doesn't spell out to be a very good combination there. So again, not a good look for not a good look, not a good sign for Andre Dillard going forward. But speaking of injuries, Michael Walker was also included. He was then waived on a injury designation, another victim to that. We've already seen Trevon Grimes go through the same thing. One of the favorites, one of the early favorites, as my dog tries to interrupt with a yawn. Are you good? Okay. But yeah, I mean, one of the early favorites, he gets waived on a injury designation as well. They had to settle on that one, and this is the same thing for Michael Walker. But a familiar face enters the fold again. Marquette Michel gets claimed off of waivers from the Carolina Panthers. He was waived yesterday by Carolina. He was on their practice squad for a little bit. He did get called up to play 2 games per. I think this is Chris McPherson talking about it. He caught back in 2019 one of those standout guys in the preseason for the Eagles, catching 4 passes for 117 yards and a touchdown. He comes back as a familiar face. 5'11", 190, good size. Let's see how he, as new blood, let's see what kind of competition that he gives to guys like Jamon Osborne or Andre Patton, for that matter. And with that said, let's get into a little bit of the depth charts here moving forward to see what we have to look forward to, especially going into our first preseason game against Pittsburgh Steelers. And we'll look at offense first here. And let me remove my banner in the top corner here so I can get a look at it as well. But, do we see any surprises here? It was kind of obvious. We noticed Devontae Smith along the outside on the first rep with Jalen Reagor. So we got Devontae, Jalen Reagor, and Greg Ward working the first group. Second group being Travis Fulgham, Quez Watkins, and am I reading that correctly? J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. Now, it was noted some time ago that maybe, he could be successful again if he gets put in the slot. It looks like that's where he is put on the unofficial depth chart behind Greg Ward. Good spot for him there. As we also see Adrian Killins included in that group there behind Michael Walker, but with Michael Walker gone, we still have yet to figure out where Marquette Michel gets placed in here. Can't imagine that he would go in Michael Walker's spot on the chart here. So Adrian Killins has a chance to show something in that preseason game and the preseason games to follow. We also noticed that John Hightower reaches third string along the outside behind Travis Fulgham. One of those guys that has been monitored on, and it has been noted before. Jason Avant talked about this on an episode of the Q&A show for Inside the Birds, and him and others alike feel that that John Hightower isn't necessarily either dedicated or 100% in love with the game of football, they feel, and that there's a maturity issue there, and we heard reports about Travis Fulgham dealing with the same thing for specific reasons. A little bit of Quez Watkins, but Quez Watkins taking second string on the outside behind Jalen Reagor. That's fantastic for him. One of the favorites going into camp, one of the breakout favorites of a lot of people, including Jason Avant. He thought that Quez was going to be one to progress and John Hightower one to regress. So, I mean, based on based on the depth chart here, that's what it's looking like so far. You also notice Hakeem Butler as the fourth string along the outside as well. So he makes the transition back, back to receiver from tight end, and it gets him the fourth spot. So we'll see how that works out there. Obviously, Jalen Hurts is your number one, and a lot of conversation there is how his performance in the preseason games is going to determine how long he is kept on the field. Nick Sirianni did, in fact, keep that in check. He talked about it at his latest presser today, so we'll see how that works out. Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert are your 1A, 1B. And that's an interesting one. I mean, for all the drama that Zach Ertz has caused, and some of it warranted by him, some of it by fans to their respect. He's still showing that he can get it done, and him being the 1B or 1A to Dallas Goedert shows that. So we'll see how that works out there. Richard Rodgers being behind them, followed by Jack Stoll, Tyree Jackson, Caleb Wilson, and Jason Kroom. A lot of competition there at the tight end spot behind Richard Rodgers, so we'll see what happens there. Andre Patton, Javon Osman, behind Quez Watkins, we see Jordan Howard as the number 2. They throw back to 2019. He makes his spot known behind Miles Sanders. Boston Scott being the number 3. It is and it isn't shocking at the same time. And then you see Kenny Gainwell, Jason Huntley, Elijah Holyfield. It is a shame to see Kerryon Johnson, in that group there trying to fight for some reps. We were hoping that the competition was going to be between him and Jordan Howard. That doesn't look like the case, as Jordan Howard has looked a lot better than Kerryon has at camp so far. So it has been well-deserved up to this point. Now we end up moving to the defensive side of the ball. Your typicals here at the defensive end and D tackle spots. You got Brandon Graham, Javon Hargrave, Fletcher Cox. Obviously, we're going to be looking at a 4-2-5 look, a mix of 3-4. Jonathan Gannon is going to run a mix. So we're going to see some. We're going to see some different lineups here. Sorry about that. I'm dealing with some sort of cold. But now we see, behind them, Ryan Kerrigan obviously taking the 2. Hassan Ridgeway is a good sign to see behind Javon Hargrave. Milton Williams behind Fletcher Cox. That's a nice looking 2 pair right there. Raekwon Williams. Some people had some decent expectations for Marlon Tuipulotu, but I guess being that, development is still there for the 6th round pick, we'll find out on how well he does in the preseason games. You see T.Y. McGill at the 3 spot at the other DT position. And then defensive end, Derek Barnett and Josh Sweat, 1A and 1B. A lot of us felt that Josh Sweat was going to take that role. He was winning. He looked like he was winning a lot at that spot in camp, but Derek Barnett is not going quietly. And for a guy that was given $10 million on a 5th-year option, you have to admit you got to be happy about that. You got to be happy about that because, it's a lot of money invested in a guy that's only 24 years old, a former 1st-round pick in his own right, a guy with the pedigree of breaking Reggie White's sack record at Tennessee, and everything that comes along with him, and underperforming, and for what it's worth. So it's good to see that the competition is still stiff there. And then behind them, you see Jaquan Bailey, Matt Leo. That's pretty much that. It is a good sign to see, Jannard Avery. Jannard Avery with the first group with Eric Wilson and Alex Singleton. That's a good sign to see from there. You're also working with T.J. Edwards as the number 2 behind Eric Wilson. Nice story there from camp. Davion Taylor is on the come up as well. You see Jacoby Stevens coming into his own at his new position, going from safety to linebacker. Sean Bradley is doing his work. Patrick Johnson. I mean, these guys. At this linebacker spot, we're hoping for a lot more promise than than expected. From expectations going into this offseason for training camp of the regard. So we'll see how that shapes up in the preseason games. And then corner, not too much of a shockers here. You're looking at Steven Nelson and Darius Slate, obviously, along the outside at that one spot. Zach McPherson and Michael Jacquet. Good for those two. Zach McPherson has been one of the stories of training camp as to how much he's been improving. It's good to see there on that kind of jump, keeping himself separated from Craig James. But Craig James is one of those great special teams players, so that's where he's primarily going to see his time. Kevon Seymour, Lavert Hill, not too much competition there. So Zach McPherson seems to be in the clear at the number 2 spot. Michael Jacquet, he's got some work to do, but we'll see how well he does in the preseason games as well. The nickel spot, Avonte Maddox back where he belongs. Good to see him over there in that positioning as well. Then we look at, Josiah Scott behind him, flashing in training camp as well. So it's nice that, it's nice to see a good backup substitute for Avonte in that regard. The safety spot, you have Kayvon Wallace as the number 1 as of right now, paired with Anthony Harris. But Kayvon is not going to participate, obviously, in the preseason games due to his groin injury, which is pretty unfortunate. So we'll probably see Andrew Adams bumped up there and find out what he does. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens from there on out. And then to top off here, Marcus Epps being behind Anthony Harris, a good sign for there as well. Elijah Riley, Blake Countess, Graylin Arnold. So with that, other than the special teams points, seeing who's going to punt return and kick return, Jalen Reagor, Quez Watkins, Devontae Smith, Kenny Gainwell, Greg Ward, Jason Huntley. Not a bad group there. It is a positive to not see Boston Scott, knowing that he wasn't, the greatest in as far as elusiveness for what it's worth at that spot. Greg Ward further back in the rotation. But I really do hope that we limit the amount of involvement with guys like Devontae Smith and Jalen Reagor. So, just to prevent injury, like the Deshaun Jackson accident against the New York Football Giants last year. We don't need something like that happening to one of those guys. So I guess we'll see from here on out what happens at that spot. And then, obviously at the kicker position, we need Jake Elliott to bounce back from a abysmal 2020 season and a little bit of 2019. So let me know y'all's thoughts down in the comments on how the depth chart offensively and defensively is looking to this point. Obviously, this is going to be subject to change. This is just the beginning. These preseason games and the rest of training camp is going to determine how this looks. Also, health is going to determine how this looks from here on out. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to get out of here. Like I said, leave your thoughts down in the comments on how you guys like the look of the depth chart so far. I'm excited to see what some of these guys have, with their opportunities, what they got to prove for this coaching staff. And with that, I will get out of here. This video got pretty long, but I'll catch y'all later. This has been Lindy for Fly Eagles Fly, Bleed Green. MFFLs, go Mavs. Take care of yourselves, everybody, and I'll see you soon.